Hi everybody, it looks like I'm live. Welcome to Free Tip Friday. It's Kate Richburg with beadshop.com and we made it to Friday, you guys. Good work, everyone. Well, good morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you're watching me from. I'm going to double check and make sure that I am in the news feed and make sure that all is good. I just got a notification, yes, right on my phone, that we are live. So it looks like a bunch of you are watching already. Good job, you guys. Yes, I see you. There's Bonnie. Good morning, everyone. I'm just going to click right on over to our Facebook page and make sure that we're all there. And so I can see your comments as well. There we go. Because, you know, it's Free Tip Friday, so I'm on my own. There we go. All right, here we go. I see you guys. There you are. There's my mom. There's Tammy. There's everybody. Good morning, everyone. Well, it's great to see you. There's Geeta. Good evening, Geeta. Well, it's great to see everyone on this Friday. So, on Wednesday, we had an epic Free Tip Friday with Emily doing that brick stitch art, right? And I was so enamored with it, and I know that so many of you were as well. So many of you were that you made them so quickly and posted them right into our beadshop.com Facebook group, which was so awesome. I know my mom made one. Gwen, you're out there. It really came out beautifully. It really shows your quilter influence. And I know a few more of you did as well. They're really, really lovely. One that really caught my eye, and some of you who may not be in the Facebook group yet may not have seen it, but I pulled it up on my phone and I'm going to share it with you in a minute. But one of our bead table members, Suzanne, from Finland, she created one right away, and she really did a really great color palette that I loved, and added some extra embellishments. So I wanted to talk a little bit about how you could take that project a little bit further, and plus I've got some new products that I think will make this piece look even more cool. So since I am on my own. Oh, yeah, that's right. I'm not on my own. That's right, Ginger. You guys are here with me. So I'm going to go ahead and move this camera around so you guys have the perspective that I do. And then we will jump in. Okay, so I'm going to scoot my screen back. I'm really close to you right here. You know, when Janice and I, sometimes when we FaceTime each other, it's kind of a funny story. We get up real close to the screen like this, and we pretend that we're whispering. I don't know. I think it's funny. Anyway, let me turn this around and let's get going. So I'm turning this camera. There we go. Come on now. You guys are going to see the whole office here. Sorry, sometimes I can't. That's what I want to see. There we go. You can see my screen. There I am. I love this meta part where it's totally crazy. And let me just get this positioned. You can see our messiness over there. There we go. Bear with me here just a minute. Alrighty. Look at that. Closer. We've got a surface. There we go. Look at there. Alrighty, and then I'll move my stuff around. So bear with me. Sorry about what it's really like behind the scenes. Totally, Kim. Totally. It's not all smoke and mirrors with us, right? We want to be real. There we go. Yeah, there's water from the waterman. That's right, from last week. That waterman. That's right. Well, this looks pretty good. I managed to swing this thing around. I think that's why, you know, Janice and I always talk about, you know, Janice is gonna do some broadcasts on her own, but I think this is the part that she's afraid of, you know, positioning the camera and doing all this stuff. But we need to encourage her. We need to encourage her when she's here. She's actually going to be here soon. She'll be joining us in just a couple weeks, not next week, but the weekend after that, for Facebook Live, so it's going to be great. So we'll encourage her to do some broadcasts from her side of the states there. Yes, well, great. Well, it's good to see everybody. Cold Wisconsin, Denise, excellent. Yes, we're gonna. Janice and I are gonna do Bead and Button this year. The classes have just launched, so you can see the classes and go onto the Bead and Button website. I've linked it in the Bead Shop Facebook group, and it's also going out in our newsletters as well. So if you are joining us, even if you don't take our class, we would love to see you. We're going to come up with a fun meetup for everybody, so it's going to be good times. All right. So let me just make sure I haven't missed anything here. All right, so let's do it. Let's jump in. Okay, so here's Emily's. For those of you, as a reminder, let me get this in here. You guys remember Emily's Brick Stitch Hearts from Wednesday. If you missed it, this is, oh, Gita, that's our Gita. What would we do without our moderator from Denmark? Hurrah! Thank you, Gita, for linking those Bead and Button Show classes. And you can just go ahead and either search me, Kate Richburg, or search Janice Parsons, and all classes will come up. They're starting to fill, which is really awesome, but we'd love to see you there if you're coming to Bead and Button. So this heart here and here, this is the Brick Stitch Heart from Facebook Live on Wednesday. And I was, I think, as enamored of it as you guys were. You know, I was telling a little secret that I haven't done Brick Stitch before, because when Emily did it on Facebook Live before, I think I might have been, I don't know where I was, maybe at Bead Fest, or I'm not sure where I was, but I didn't do Brick Stitch with Emily. So this was my first go round, and I found it to be actually a pretty easy stitch to do. Also, as Emily said, really adaptable. And I saw a bunch of you make, when you were making your pieces, you really kind of jumped in and, you know, used kind of whatever you had laying around, which was really awesome. My mom jumped in and used size 15s, which I am totally in awe of. Because I can hardly see these size 11s. But Emily did this base row, just to reiterate. And if you do want to find the pattern, you can go to beadshop.com. It's our latest Facebook Live, this past one on Wednesday, called Heart on My Sleeve. And so what Emily did was she did this cool base row with these bugle beads. And I thought it was a really cool idea to establish the piece, you know, establish kind of something to work off of. But as Emily mentioned, you didn't have to use a bugle. So as I was leaving last night, I grabbed some beads. Of course, I had the best intentions of getting a little further on in this piece. But I want to, let me come in a little bit closer so you guys can see that. What I grabbed were some 8/0s. Because I wanted this to be, I don't know, I wanted to work a little bit bigger, okay? So, so these were the 8/0s here. And we also got back in stock these really great hematite cut cubes. And you can find those on the website as well. And they're called, if you just put in the search box, cut cubes. They really are fun to use. They're similar to shadows. I'm going to pull this in here. But we've just got them all back in, and we're going to get them in different colors as well. Now this one, this is the hematite rose gold. It's a 2mm bead. So again, it's very similar to my most favorite bead in the world, which is the shadow. But this, instead of a metal bead, it is a hematite bead, which is semi-precious stone. And what they do is they plate over the top of these stones, and the plating is super permanent, and it just looks, I think, delicious. So you can see, I brought our little bins right from where we send them to you. This one is the hematite rose gold. I grabbed the hematite copper. Look at how beautiful that is. Oh my goodness, so delicious. And that's exactly right, Angela. 2mm beads are perfect for adding air. These are the hematite silver. Okay, so, and Yvette, you did a question mark. What? Adding air? It's one of the things that Janice says when we're designing. We want to add a little bit of air in the design so things can move around, especially with laddering. We reference, leave some air, give me some air to make our ladder bracelets sit correctly. For instance, let me pull the shot out a little bit. I'm wearing, you guys know this bracelet, I wear this all the time. It's my Shadows bracelet that's just with this leather. But as you begin your piece, see here, you can see I've used a small shadow, a little shadow, and then it graduates up to the regular shadow. This is what we mean by adding air or keeping air in the piece. It just kind of graduates it up so it sits kind of nicely. Okay, so yeah, the hematite bead, Kim, as you say, it's just solid. It's not going anywhere. I have used these, worn them, tested them, and we have just a whole bunch of beautiful colors. In fact, next week I'm going to, on Facebook Live, I'm doing my version of color study. It's called the Deco Wrap, and I use the hematite bead in the matte silver, which is super, no, not the matte silver. Maybe I use it both, matte silver and I think the matte gold. But they're really beautiful. It works. They work great. So, and we'll be getting some new colors in soon. So, to make a really long story even longer, let me pull this heart back into the center. And then I'm going to show you, Suzanne, I saw that you just jumped on. I haven't shown your piece yet, and I'm going to show your inspiration here in just a second. But can you see here, you guys, how I've used the, let me get a little closer so you can, how I've used that plated hematite right there. So, and remember how Emily was saying, when we start our row, we jump in and we start our brick stitch not in this first little join right here, but where the second row starts, and that kind of makes this row start to shape the heart. Well, notice how when I added that second row, my hematite beads started to curve. And I'm actually really okay with that, because as I build it, this is probably going to make my heart have a little more of a heart pointy shape, right? So I'm just going to see where it goes. You can see here with Emily's, it's pretty straight across, but with smaller beads like this, and this 2mm I thought was a good size for the ADOT seed bead. So that's what we've got, and I'm just going to jump in and test it and see how it goes. You know, these aren't a huge investment in time, so I really haven't worked on this very long at all, and I'm, you know, once I get that other heart lobe, as Emily likes to say, I'll be almost halfway done, I think. Okay, so let me show you the inspiration for Suzanne's, the one that I loved from the bead table. I'm going to scoot it over. I've got it right here on my phone so you guys can see it. It's a little hard for you guys to, I don't want it to be too glary. But can you guys see how beautiful her color choices were and her inspirations, if I'm not mistaken? This one was inspired by a rag rug of your grandmother's, Suzanne. I think that's right. And so she called it Rag Rug Heart, which I just love. And you can see, can I zoom? No, I can't zoom in. But what she did was, I think you guys can see that okay, right? It does have like a tapestry feel. It sure does, Trish. I really, really love it. And you can see Suzanne's establishing base row. That's these right here. And Suzanne, I think you used 11/aughts. Is that right? I think it was 11s that you used. But this base row that you established here, 1, 2, 3 seed beads, that also approximates the bugle beads that Emily used here in her original heart. Then notice how she banded that single color with the Picasso beads here and here. See that? What I loved about that was that it gave this band kind of a focal point. So I took inspiration from Suzanne, borrowed a little inspiration, and you can see, oh, 8/aughts and 11/aughts. Okay, so this base row, if I'm not mistaken, then these guys are 8/aughts. They look a little bit bigger to me. So these are the 8s, and then these and these would be the 11s, I think. So I took that inspiration, borrowed that inspiration here, and you can see I've banded. So there's a dark band here above my hematite, and then there'll be a dark band there. And then the other beads that I used this brown tan matte or 8/aught round Picasso. That's this guy. And isn't it? It's a beautiful work of art, Eileen, isn't it? It's really just, I just thought it was so charming. And I also really loved the little embellishments that you did here on the bottom, and I have some drops that we're gonna talk about these in a minute, about how to deal with those. But back to this palette, I'm gonna put this to the side for the moment and pull this one front and center to kind of talk about how I pulled in this palette. So there's that brown tan matte Picasso. That's this guy on Bead Shop. And what I'll do, you guys, after, of course, like I do with Free Tip Friday, I'll go ahead and I'll write this up on a blog post so you guys have all the links, and I will link Suzanne's beautiful photo to that as well for inspiration. I also used the smoky black matte in the Picasso. Let me get a little tighter so you guys can really see that. I used, of course, this rose gold hematite cornerless cube. Then, for later, I grabbed some 11/aughts, the Duracoat galvanized pewter. We're going to use these also, these little friends. And then, you know, while I was paletting and kind of looking on the wall, I wanted something that had a little contrast, I guess. So these are the beads that Emily used in her bead crochet rope, the aged travertine striped brick. So I just grabbed those because you know, these aren't always available, and they're available now. But it's a check seed bead. But they are kind of hard to find, this charming little stripe. And I want to make sure that you guys can see that okay. Maybe I can really get tight on that so you guys can see how it has that little, it'll add a little bit of texture. Whoops, there we go. It'll add a little bit of texture, visual texture, because it has that stripe on it. Okay. So, so that was my palette. That's what I did. And then Trish, you asked, am I using Fireline? Well, honestly, I thought about it because I have been using Fireline now lately, and I love it. But Emily used KO for the project, so I grabbed KO just to be consistent with the project. And I'm using this, I think this is Smoky gray, maybe. Of course, I didn't make a note of it, but let me look it up for you real quick like. KO comes in so many delicious colors, and I wanted my KO to kind of, I don't know, contrast rather than match so much. So yeah, I use the smoke green. That's what this is here. But you could use Fireline. That works too. But I dig it, so I just use this green one here. So instruction-wise, you guys saw Emily and I do this on our Facebook Live on Wednesday. But I'm at a point where I'm going to weave in another thread. So I just thought I would show you that part. You know, I like the KO too, Trish. You know, some of us who've been seed beading a while may have started out with Nymo thread. And I was reading a blog post the other day by Diane Fitzgerald, who is a very old school seed beater. She's been teaching seed bead techniques for years. She wrote kind of a cool post about, you know, all of the products that are available now. And she talked about Nymo thread and about how Nymo, way back in the day, in the late 80s, when we were starting to do beadwork like this, Nymo was the only thing that was available, really. And it was, only came in black and white. And the black and white, slowly, when the thread company that made Nymo started to realize that beaders were using it, they started making it in a bunch of different colors for seed beaders. And then some of you may remember Silamide. Silamide is a tailor's thread used in the tailor industry. But Silamide started to be used with seed beads as well, and then the ball just kept rolling and kept different threads and things started jumping in. So it's great that we have all of these choices now. KO, I think, to me, is kind of like a supercharged Nymo, so I really love using it. So I'm going to go ahead and add this thread in so you guys can see this. You can go back and I'll link in the blog post the first Facebook Live that Emily and I talk about using this. But you will be able to see all of the instruction from Emily and I. So I'm going to jump in suffix. I don't know it, Suzanne. That may be something that's a European thread that we haven't hit on in the States. I'll have to look that up and check it out. I'm just going to weave this back and forth. And one of the things, Donna, you mentioned you use quilting thread. Sometimes for this, I use quilting needles. I use really super fine sharps sometimes, and those sharps needles are short. And so I use that sometimes for my beading, but what I'm using here today actually is a size 10 needle. I know that Emily likes those size 12s, but I like my needle, and especially since these beads are a little bit bigger, I like my needle a little bit bigger because I just cannot see those thread holes. Okay, so I'm going to weave back and forth, just like Emily talked about. I'm turning those corners, and where I'm going to start is I'm going to start my beads right here, just like so. 1G, you know, I know that 1G is out there, and I'll be honest, I have not used it. You know, I just started using Fireline, honestly, because of Emily Miller. But I know that some people do love 1G, which is good. Yeah. Yeah, and Cindy, that's a really great comment. You were using KO with your first try at peyote, and you had a lot of trouble. but when you switch to Fireline, everything fell into place. I agree. You were saying you think it's because of the body of the Fireline. I agree. I feel like Fireline is almost a mix between like Softflex and Wire, right? I kind of feel that way. So I do like the body of it. So just to show you what I'm doing here, and again, you can watch the Facebook Live, but for the first go round of the brick stitch for this heart lobe, I've put on 4 beads because we always put on the first 2 little rows when we start our row. And there goes those 4. And I'm going to come around, as Emily says, go under that thread, which I've done. I'm going to come around and go back up this line, go back down to secure those underneath the thread, just like so. And we've put everything kind of in place. And I'm going to come up that group of beads, and now I am ready to go, and we're just going to add. So I'll add my little mustard and then my black thread, and I kept doing that backwards. My spatial relationship on this. There we go. And we just go back up. And one of the cool things that I liked, Suzanne, about your piece was that you had kind of a regular pattern, and then you went rogue. You know, you kind of jumped in and did some kind of freeform colors. So I really liked that it was a mix of regular beads or regular patterns and kind of a freeform pattern. So again, 2 beads go on. I go right under that little blip of thread. And again, if you can't see what I'm doing real well, don't be overly frustrated. We'll link, just go, all of the directions for this are in the Facebook Live from Wednesday, from the 10th. And then I come up. So you can see that regular, oh, that's right, your kitty cat, Krista. That's your cat, Mickey, right? Oh, my biggest fan. I love that part. And then I'm going to go up. And then I'll just finish out this row, and then we'll talk about going rogue, because that's my favorite. Okay, so you can see here, I'm going to count this row. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I put 7 rows there, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I need to do 1 more row. Come on now. Oh, whoops. I haven't gone up through. I know you guys are all saying, go up through that row, Kate. Go up through that row. Let me do it. Okay. Now, we'll put on this last row. And as Emily said when we were talking about this in the broadcast, I just have this little place to put my needle in right there at the end, so that's okay. We'll do that. And there's this row that's established. And if the heart is a little wonky, that's okay. But you can see how this is curving just a little. And I think it's cool. I think it's a cool effect because it's these hematite beads, and the 8/0 aren't exactly the same size, so it gives it that little bit of curve. And then I'll just keep building up here with this side to match this side. Now you can see I've added a little bit of sparkle. I've added one of those hematite beads up there, and I'll probably add maybe one or two on this side, and I'll probably add a little bit of that sparkle down into the heart itself. Okay. I also have the top of these here. I stopped with the 8/0, and I thought it might be kind of an interesting effect, and I wanted to try it. I have a short piece of thread, but we're going to just go with it. I'm going to see how 11/0 look. And if you're having trouble, go ahead and wax the end. And I also thought that 11/0 maybe around the outside or kind of on the bottom. Whoops, I want to needle my thread, not thread my needle. Right? Do Emily's wise words go through your head when you're seed beading? There we go. Whoops. Emily's telling me right at this point, needle your thread. Don't thread your needle. There we go. So if I'm here, maybe I want to do a row of 3. So remember, we always put our first 2 rows on. So I'm going to, our first 2 little stitches on. So I'll put 3 for the first column and 3 for the second. And we'll go under the second little thread arch. And so you can see it's here. Now I'll go back up, and it may give me too much space, but let's see what happens. Who knows? Whoops. Let me put that back on. I didn't go all the way under that thread and back around. There we go. 1, 2, and gosh, 11/0 are tiny after 8/0, aren't they? There we go. And let's make sure this isn't too... There we are. So now I'm going to come down, and this is where it should even everything out. I'm going to go through my little column of beads and under that little archway that's right there, and that should bring these 2 beads together. Because I'm going to go back under this arch and tighten it up. Yep, there we go. So now for my 3rd row, or my 3rd column, 1, 2, 3, I still have some room here. So I'm just going to pass this underneath and up like this. So I think it's kind of a cool way. Yeah, look at that mix of sizes. I think that's just pretty good times right there. Okay. So I'm just gonna, I'll do one more. 2, 3 underneath, and maybe I'll bring it over here to this one. Go back up through that column. I'm getting a little dangerously low on thread, but we're going to pretend that Emily will never see this, and we'll just, yeah, that looks okay. Oh, thanks, Gita. You know, maybe we can do an over-the-shoulder. I'll talk to Brandwin about it. You know, we kind of are so set in our ways on Wednesday that when we move things around, you never know what's going to happen. But let's see, especially for Emily's seed bead school. We'll see what we can do. I'm glad you like this angle. There we go. And I'll just do one more. Might as well finish out this row. If we've started it, let's end it. Go underneath there. And then maybe I'd finish off with a row of, don't know, maybe 2 beads. But like Emily said, this is a pretty darn adaptable stitch. See, look at that. Oh, I have such a short little piece of thread. Okay, so there it is. There's my little thing, and maybe I'll just make one last little row there. We'll see what that looks like. But I think it's kind of coming along kind of interestingly. So let me show you some variations on this. Let me get Miss Suzanne's pretty little photo back up. Now we can see, let me make this a little bit bigger. We can see her piece here. There we go. Now you can see it. There we go. And you can see her little drops, her little droplets down here at the bottom. One of them, I'm going to get my phone up really close so you guys can see it. See how this is a little loop right here of size 11 seed beads? That loop is what holds that drop down at the very end. And Suzanne, if I'm not mistaken, you use some smaller little dagger beads here. Those daggers, I think, probably just slide in right on the rows as you were brick stitching. But you could also add them in later by stitching through here, adding a little seed bead and stitching back through up through those beads, and then kind of weaving in and out to add them. Okay. So the drops that I grabbed, and I'm going to do this real quick on this piece of Emily's because I didn't finish the bottom of this heart, but I will. Let me get these little drops. These are our check glass drops, which I love. And the check, they're called check, I think we just call them drops, right? Check drops. I'm looking those up. Yeah, and this color, this is mustard. So I'm going to cut these right up, just like that. And you can see what a pretty little drop that is. Might be the wrong color for this blue one, so maybe I'll put it with the red. I don't know. It's going to go with this, but I want to show you how I might put that on. So I will grab another piece of thread, because this is just going to be temporary, so I will clip it. We would wax it, and we'll needle it. This thread. And that's why I grabbed some more 11/aughts. And let's say down here at the bottom of this heart, I would start, it would be my completed heart here. I would probably just weave in from wherever I wanted to start. It would be cool. That would be transparent. That would be great. I don't want to alter Emily's original designs too much, so I'm going to cut this off when I'm done, and you'll see it on my other one. But you can see I've just turned the corner to make a little square. Who's the boss of this thread, ladies and gentlemen? Me. There we go. And then I'm just going to weave it down to where I want that drop to be. Right here. Okay? Push this sucker down, grab it, then I'm ready. They're called Rizzo drops. Oh, I like the sound of those. I'm going to put on 3 little size 11s. This would also be a good use of 15s to make a little smaller loop, but I think the 11s work pretty well. I would just come back in to the tip there like so. Let me get in a little tighter here so you guys can see. and pull that through. Now, I always like to err on the side of being cautious with my threads, so I would come back down and I would go through this one more time so I've got a doubled thread here. Go through Your Friend and Mine, the drop, and follow that thread path up through, like so. Ta-da! Then I would, if I were going to add some drops on the side, let me turn this around the other way so you guys can see it. I don't know, I kind of dig mustard and red. I think it's kind of cool. You could add some more drops coming off the side here. I would just do maybe another loop of beads. Maybe I'd do 2. Let's see if 2 would work. 1 and 2. And one of those check drops. Yes, we're going to talk about those buttons in just a second, Lorraine. And then, I don't know, maybe I would test it and see. Maybe it would come up here. I don't know. That's why peyote stitch is so my favorite, because I'm all about kind of freeform. So I don't like to plan too far ahead. Yeah, can you see that? That little drop would hang off just perfectly. And then I might go through that thread path one more time, around, 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 and then go up and do that again. And you could, you could edge that with anything. This bead's a little bit big maybe for this, but a smaller drop or anything you'd like, for sure. Okay. The other thing that we also have, and I'll show it with this blue one, is we do have, and Lorraine, you spied these are new buttons. So in addition to having all of these hematite beads back in, you can see it's sunshiny over there. The sun's moving. There we go. We've gotten some new buttons. We've got 2 new heart styles. These round ones here, and these little heart-shaped ones here. And then we've got 2 new buttons. These are from Green Girl, these 2 here, this elongated heart, and they're called, let me pull them up so I can see, they're in our Just Good, place to see all of our Just-ins is our Just-in section on beadshop.com. These guys are called Follow Your Heart in antique silver and antique brass. These are called Full Circle in antique silver and antique brass. This one is just called Heart, and it's the pewter. It's from Green Girl. And this one is called, aptly enough, Froggy. Isn't that cute? And I know what my mom is going to say. She's going to say, that was your nickname when you were little. And that is true. Froggy was my nickname. That elicited a laugh from Cara, a chuckle from Cara. What's that? I'm going to have to explain. I don't know. I don't even know if I know the maybe it's because I had a stuffed green frog when I was a very little girl, so maybe that's where it came from. I don't know. It was cute. Don't tell the story, Ma. Don't tell the story. So if we wanted to add this little button, maybe to the front, look at how cool this would look on that heart piece. I just love the way that looks. And we touched on that a little bit when we, on the Wednesday Facebook Live. So the way that I would deal with that, I'm going to do this on this bead, this one. And again, I'm going to cut all of this off later. So, but I would just bring my needle, work my needle over through these columns of beads, like so. just like so. And like so. Until I got to the point where I'd want to add the heart. And you can see some buttons, it depends on how the button is seated. Some buttons have the shank going this way, and some have the shank going the other way. So I'm going to needle up until I'm at the right place. And Mimi, as you observed earlier, since I did do some costuming in my former life, I do like everything super sturdy. Because you know those actors, those careless actors. They're not always so mindful of their... Well, they're busy. They're acting on stage, right? So they're not always so busy, mindful of their costumes. But so we want to make sure that nothing falls apart when you're on stage. Same thing with your jewelry, okay? So here's the back of the button. And this button shank, Cynthia made it nice and big. So I can get these size 11s. Let me get it tighter here. I can get these size 11s right under this button shank. Can you see that? But this button shank here, oh, these fit, but not quite as well, right? So I would probably put on, well, now I've got one stuck in there. I'd probably put on 3 beads and then put on another 3 that way. But for this button of Cynthia's from Green Girl, I just slide right under the shank. Okay, so I'll slide that on. Now, I put it on backwards. Wouldn't you know? There we go. So let's look at kind of the back view here. See how it's kind of going to come in. And I'm going to probably skip a column and bring it down right here through this one. So it has a little bit of room. Or again, yeah, Gita, I could use 15s behind that shank of the button. I sure could. Whatever worked. And I'm going to hold it here and tighten everything up. And then I'm going to see how it sits. And I think that if I hold it here and I look, there's a little bit, whoops, sorry. Let me just get that into frame. There's a little bit of space there, but what I may do to fill that up is give myself one more band of seed beads on this side and one more on this side to make it a little more stable. Come here, 11-aught. And then go back through this original one that I went up through. And let me pull this through and then I'll show you how all of this looks on the back. Tighten everything up. There we go. That sits much better. So see? Like so. So now I would stitch back and forth to make that nice and sturdy. Gives it a little bit of a 3D effect, what I like. And yes, Marnie, you read my mind. What you could do, let me show you with the froggy. If you were planning this when you were actually stitching the heart, like I'm doing here, you could use this, stitch this right in, I'll turn it to the back, as you were working your brick stitch, kind of like, if you guys remember the evening and morning ombre project that Emily did, in the Facebook Live project broadcast, Emily put the button on and she wove it right into the peyote stitch. You could do the same thing with this. I could do my little columns of brick stitch and then put some seed beads behind this and then go back here with my column and then just keep brick stitching. So you would see when it was finished the shank of the button in and amongst this stitching, and it would sit a little more in a recessed manner. But either way, during or after the fact, I think would work. And I would still reinforce it, you bet. I would go back through at least twice, probably twice, depending on the sizes of the bead holes. 11/0 I'd probably go through twice, maybe 8/0 I'd go through 3 times, but I'm that kind of beader. But I like this a lot. I think it looks cool. So that's the story. I'm sticking to it. Nope, now that I'm a grown-up, you can't call me Froggy anymore. Sorry. Maybe you can. I don't know. Maybe it'll be my eccentric old lady name. Who knows? Who knows what's going to happen? All right, so you guys, I hope you found this kind of an interesting way to take your pieces in a new direction or further those pieces into some new, some new territory, some new designs. I'll go ahead, like I said earlier, do a little blog post with some of these ideas on them so you guys can see them. Link all of the colorways that I used, and oh, all right, Steph. That's okay. That's right. You were talking to that bead. That's right. There you go. Perfect. I'll use all of these things, put them all up so you guys can have a link, and that'll be up by end of day, and we'll also put it on the homepage of the website. And I'll also, of course, link Suzanne's beautiful project there, a photo of this. Thank you, Suzanne, so much for letting me take that inspiration and sharing it on today's Free Tip Friday. I really super appreciate it. It was great inspiration. It was a lot of fun. Let me turn the camera around, and I'll bid you all a fond farewell. Let me see if I can do that without flashing too much of our crazy office here. There we go. We're turning. There I am. And let me pull this back a little bit. There we go. Am I even? There we go. That wasn't too painful. All right. Yes. So, on Wednesday, Facebook Live coming up, Emily and I are going to be doing Deco Wrap, which is my take on color study. We're going to be laddering with wheat chain, which is going to be really fun. I know some of you might have questions about that. We're going to do a little bit of color paletting. It's going to be really fun. I'm looking forward to sharing that with you. And I'll share my inspiration for the Deco Wrap, one of my favorite paintings of all time I used as my color inspiration. Then the following Wednesday, Janice will be back. She's going to be out here from the East Coast, and we're going to be making a really great piece. It's a cuff, and we're going to really talk about stringing mindfully, about laying out patterns, but really stringing kind of an heirloom quality piece. It's going to be really fun. She's going to drop a lot of knowledge on you for this one. So I think that will do it. Let me see if there's any final things. Sounds great. Oh, yep, it looks like you tried linking to it, Suzanne's Heart, but since it was in the Facebook group, I don't think they let you link it. So no worries. We will, I'll link it in the blog post. And Sharon, you asked, did I use the seed beads to give it more of a 3D look? I did. I used the seed beads to attach those pieces at the end, and you'll see it all. I'll link it in the blog post, and then you can watch this on the replay. For all of our Free Tip Fridays, you can find them right here on our Facebook page here at beadshop.com. You can find them on our YouTube channel, beadshop.com, which has all of our playlists, all of our videos, and of course you can find them linked on our Facebook Live page. There's one little box that says Free Tip Friday, and every Free Tip Friday that we film is right there. You can also search our blog, The Bead Table, for Free Tip Friday, and a lot of the Free Tip Fridays that you guys, we did Harvest Wrap, we did that Boho Beauty with Cynthia's necklace. A lot of those projects live over there on our blog, The Bead Table. Well, thank you guys so much for joining me, getting ready for a great weekend. We'll see you next week on Facebook Live with Emily. Have a great weekend, everybody. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.